SCP-7776, the Unwell. Most people in survival situations are going to prioritize their own survival above practically all other things, except for perhaps the survival of their immediate loved ones. Sacrificing yourself to save others is a pretty rare trait, even more so if you're called to do it repeatedly. Obviously, certain professions in the real world are expected to risk themselves for strangers from time to time, and in the SCP universe, agents, researchers, and D-Class do it with startling regularity, even if they don't want to. With SCP-7776, we have an anomaly that pretty much demands people to risk themselves for the greater good, with pretty dire consequences if they decide not to. Let's take a look. Before we get into the description, 7776 actually has a lengthy set of containment procedures, as well as a set of archived procedures that are now obsolete. The obsolete ones are fairly typical, although it states that no more than 200 individuals may be aware of the existence of 7776 at any given time. A vast majority of those affected by it have taken residence in a village, which has been isolated as a quarantine zone, as well as being the location of Site-93. Site-93 is dedicated to studying and containing the anomaly, and no ritual activity is to be performed in association with 7776 without explicit permission from the site director. Ritual activity is to be conducted on an as-needed basis. Personnel who approach Site-93 or request visitation are to be detained and undergo interrogation, and any personnel determined to be affected by 7776 may be subject to execution. Sounds like we're dealing with a hefty cognito hazard here. The new containment procedures state that Site-93 is to act as a largely independent facility, with minimal oversight and contact with the greater Foundation. Communication with the outside is only to be performed by a rotating roster of 3 designated personnel, and personnel are prohibited from unregulated recording of images or videos by any means. In order to ensure privacy, Site-93 has been fitted with several automated anti-air systems, as well as 3 strategically placed sniper outposts. Foundation documentation regarding Site-93 is to describe the site in broad terms, specifying that it contains a cognito-hazardous object, as well as a general summary of the above communication restrictions and the above situation regarding anti-air systems and snipers. Knowledge of 7776 must be limited to a maximum of 200 individuals at any given time, and should any individual outside of Site-93 learn of it, they are to be apprehended and terminated, with an investigation into how they learned of it to be launched. Site-93 is constructed surrounding and integrated into the local village, where 7776 is located, which operates autonomously but in partnership with the Foundation in containment of the anomaly. The use of anomalous technology and other contained objects known to personnel stationed there is permitted in the containment of 7776 in lieu of full Foundation support. A total of 8 Scranton reality anchors have been placed in the middle perimeter wall surrounding Site-93. All residents of the village, as well as all on-site D-Class personnel, have been provided training to aid in the containment of 7776, with a number of them also being granted Level 2 clearance in regards to it. Also, the population of the village and the site personnel have jointly agreed to the prohibition of further children being born into the population. In the event that an unassigned Foundation member or other operative is detected approaching the site, they are to be detained, regardless of ranking, and interrogated to determine the extent of their knowledge regarding 7776. Should they be determined to have fallen under its effects, they are to be integrated into Site-93 staff until further review, unless they are of Level 4 clearance or higher, in which case they are to be terminated. All staff and affected individuals are to convene in the town hall every morning in order to allow for the reception of the day's ritual dictation. Each ritual must be described in accurate detail before witnesses and recorded for posterity within the on-site network. should it be determined that the received ritual is not excessively harmful or traumatic, the receiver of the vision may be allowed to undertake the ritual within the following 24 hours, if they choose to do so. Should no ritual be undertaken within a period of 19 days, the next ritual, known as the critical date ritual, must be undertaken as per decree of the on-site ethics committee and directors. Failure to complete a critical date ritual is to be severely punished, and incentivizing programs are to be instituted to encourage ritual activity. Staff assigned to Site-93 and the people of the village must remain on site until death, with escapees to be apprehended or terminated. So, we have some sort of cognitohazardous anomaly in a remote village that no more than 200 people can learn about at one time, or bad stuff happens. It's bad enough that anyone outside of the area who learns about it and comes to visit it is to be interrogated and forced to work there till they die, unless they're high-ranking, in which case they just get terminated. In addition, the Foundation also has to do rituals constantly for some reason, or bad stuff happens. Now that we've wet our whistles on that, let's check the description. We're once again given an outdated and obsolete description, which states that 7776 is a specific line of deductive reasoning and associative thinking with cognitohazardous tendencies. The conclusion of a subject's investigation will provide them with knowledge of the existence of a groundwater well, which they will believe to harbor a hostile entity, intelligence, or force within. This well is located in a village in a mountain range between Slovakia and Poland, and cognitohazardous effects have been determined to spread specifically through media directly referencing the well's appearance, or secondary media derived from this. Individuals affected by the anomaly feel compelled to participate in hazardous ritual behavior around the well in an effort to appease a hostile presence they believe resides within, and will do so periodically. Such behavior often results in grievous harm towards the participants, frequently via anomalous means, but does not deter further ritual behavior. Should those affected by it believe a course of action undertaken to prevent a hostile entity emerging from the well to be anomalous, said course of action will become anomalous via the tulpa effect. So, the old description describes the cognitohazardous effect that makes people think that the well is holding some sort of evil entity or intelligence. The new description, however, says that SCP-7776 is a groundwater well that exists in the center of the village, possessing a unique structural composition which does not match building materials or compositional techniques historically common to its region. It possesses various anomalous qualities, the most immediate of which being cognitohazardous afflictions of one's perception of the well. These effects persist at the site, through audiovisual media, or through one's understanding and familiarity with the well. Cognitohazardous anomalies can become ingrained in an individual who has merely learned about the well's appearance in a complete enough description, and does not rely on visual or tactile contact. Afflicted individuals describe that they can perceive a gateway or window at the bottom of the well, which leads to a pocket dimension, cavern, or a bubble that houses an undefined hostile force. This force is described only in an individual's understanding of its apparent intentions, and never a physical appearance or assumed nature. Descriptions universally describe the intent to climb the well and enter our reality, as well as an immense cruelty and capacity to enact harm to all life on Earth. This understanding also comes with an understanding that this malice may be repelled through performance of a daily ritual. The well becomes the subject of intense fear, recurring nightmares, and an aversion towards discussing the anomaly, favoring compulsive, self-soothing behaviors and a desire to perform said ritual. Every morning, one or more individuals affected by the anomaly will experience an audio-visual hallucination, informing them of a set of ritual behavior in order to ensure that the entity will not emerge. Hallucinations are described as visions, often in the religious sense, and are painful to the subject's eyes and teeth. The rituals themselves are also often painful, degrading, or possibly deadly, as well as nonsensical and expensive in both monetary and other senses. Amnestics may remove an individual's affliction by the fear of the entity, but will not remove the occurrence of these visions. Often, visions will reinstate the effect, through the mental image of the well imposing itself on the subject. Ritual visions are never identical, though certain trends and themes recur fairly often. Each ritual has incorporated a specific chant into its procedure, which is not in any known language or dialect, and any meaning it may carry is unknown. Personnel are not spontaneously capable of reciting said chant, but instead feel as if they must attempt it to the best of their ability. After experiencing a vision, afflicted individuals experience a powerful urge to carry out the ritual in order to prevent the entity from entering our reality. This urge will gradually fade if actions are not performed within a 24-hour period, though they will usually experience more visions in the following days. These additional visions will depict increasingly complex and invasive rituals, leading to the mental degradation of subjects through heavy stress. The well's secondary effects on local reality will also become increasingly pronounced, so it's imperative that the rituals be carried out as soon as they are deemed safe or acceptable. The rituals may include emotional tolls, monetary transactions, political influence, and in certain cases, the use of other anomalous items within the reach of the Foundation in order to complete. The scale of a ritual may also demand additional persons being brought in, whether for inclusion in the performance or rarely as a captive audience. It's inconsistent whether the failure of a given ritual may lead to the well imposing severe effects on local reality, and reactions from the object do not correspond to ritual scale, complexity, or violence. Failures universally expand the well's influence, however, and must be avoided. The ambient effects of the well are profound, though the area of effect is limited and centered on the well itself. Liquids that pass into the well convert into a thick, corrosive fluid, shown to be able to sustain biological function in damaged human tissue when diluted with water. Weather patterns in a 17-kilometer radius of the village remain overcast, despite anticipated regional weather patterns, with multiple thunderstorms and snowstorms each month year-round. Native wildlife passively maintain a distance of approximately 10 kilometers from the well, although migratory bird populations will pass through this range, but their flight patterns often form spirals or rings, and birds display severe confusion upon landing within the area of effect. Persons residing within the area of effect may experience anomalous developments, including physical changes such as straight hair becoming curly, or fingerprints changing into irregular spiral shapes. On occasion, personnel may discover spontaneous dental growth in the palate in a spiral configuration. Several individuals have spontaneously experienced ocular degeneration, with their pupils and irises changing in shape. As Foundation personnel remain in Site-93 for longer, similar alterations are being discovered with increasing frequency. The feeling of being watched, audio hallucinations of whispering or distant gibberish, or the feeling of hands and breath upon one's bare skin are also reported. These are believed to be connected to the well, and not the result of natural stress responses. Should no ritual activity occur in the vicinity of the well for more than a week, the above effects will become far more pronounced and severe, and the area of effect will expand outward. These severe effects can include randomly shifting topography, precipitation composed of viscera, mental fog, mass hysteria, and more. On several occasions, the well has flooded, with volumes of corrosive fluids and fragmentary fresh human remains ejected from it. During these occasions, humanoid figures composed of mud appeared in the well's immediate radius, and an extreme increase in the population of aggressive rats appeared within the village and Site-93. We're next given some excerpts from the Log of Rituals, which notes that many of those involved in the site and the village believe that luck is a significant factor in not only the assignment of visions, but also the content of the rituals. Beyond the universally negative nature of the rituals, the only commonality between them is a requirement to recite a chant in an unknown language. One ritual involved the subject removing all of their clothing and embedding 17 nails into the sole of each foot. They then proceeded to use the blood from this action to draw a spiral glyph on their chest, and performed a fast jig dance around the well whilst repeating the standard ritual chant for 174 minutes before losing consciousness. Another ritual involved 6 people drawing straws, with the individual drawing the shortest straw fleeing into the area surrounding Site-93. After a period of 1 hour, the remaining subjects proceeded to hunt him for over 4 hours before terminating him via gunshot. A cut of meat from him was then prepared and consumed by the remaining individuals, who then carried the body back to Site-93 and deposited it into the well after intoning the standard ritual chant. Another ritual involved an individual collecting all photographs and mementos of loved ones outside of the site and depositing them within the well while reciting the standard ritual chant. And a fourth ritual had the site director supposed to retrieve an SCP from another site and force feed it the well's corrosive liquid in large quantities before releasing it towards the nearest civilian settlement. This ritual was not completed. Another ritual had an individual recover an ornate ring from the well and place it on her ring finger before reciting a slight variant of the standard ritual chant. The subject then proceeded to consume some of the corrosive liquid with no ill effect, at which point the ring was unable to be removed. Later that day, she was found within her quarters in an excited, catatonic state with numerous semi-human bite wounds on her person. Another ritual involved a couple being instructed to place their youngest child inside of a large sack, alongside several stones, before depositing it into the well. They were distressed by the vision, but were willing to participate in the ritual, although the Foundation determined that the ritual was not to be completed. Another one that wasn't completed would have involved an individual receiving a packet of seeds from within the well and planting them in specific locations within Site-93's agricultural zone. Due to the vision failing to adequately depict the consequences of completing this ritual, it was deemed too great a risk to the survival of the staff. Other rituals involved consuming uncooked goat shanks, cutting out a portion of thigh muscle from oneself before consuming it, firing upon civilian air traffic, and urinating in a jar and depositing it into the well. The last ritual we're told about involved 5 people gathering around the well, drawing blood from their palms and drawing spiral symbols on each other's foreheads. They then continuously recited the standard ritual chant as they circled the well 17 times, as all of their hands gradually became grafted together over the course of the ritual. Surgery was performed afterwards to separate their hands, and the subjects reported that, in spite of understanding the risks of the ritual, they felt obligated to enact it in an effort to prevent larger numbers of site staff from suffering. Random sure is right, as it definitely feels like some sort of malevolent entity just messing with these people over and over. We move on to discussing the Foundation's discovery of the well, which occurred in March of 2000, after first contact was made with the inhabitants of the village. Members of rescue organizations pursuing the wreckage of a flight reported being fired upon by groups of local civilians, including several recognized to be survivors of the plane. Upon interception by law enforcement, civilian inhabitants of the village were found to be without records or identification, or familiarity with modern technology. The Foundation took notice after it became evident that all civilians carried the same warnings regarding the danger in the mountains, and the consistency of phrasing across several dozen individuals. Observations seemed to indicate that the inhabitants of the village were under the effect of an anomalous force, and had coerced the plane crash survivors to participate in rituals and come under the influence of the well. At this time, no Foundation personnel had become affected, so it was theorized that the villagers were the root cause of the anomaly. It was decided that the village would be converted into a remote site, and Foundation operatives were to contain the inhabitants of the village. The operation was largely successful, although numerous inhabitants of the village were able to flee into the surrounding wilderness. Construction of the site began as personnel began searching for the escaped villagers, and any personnel affected by the well were given amnestics, as it was believed that the anomaly was an info hazard spread by the villagers rather than the well itself. With no rituals being performed, the well's reality-altering effects rapidly became increasingly pronounced. As the villagers were thought to be the source, their study was made the highest priority, but within a week, the entire population of the site was affected by the well, many of them calling for rituals to be performed. These individuals were contained, along with 62 of the village's inhabitants, leading to an even worsening of the well's effects. By April of 2000, the well reached a critical point, affecting an area with an irregular radius averaging 80 kilometers and causing catastrophic casualties, resulting in Event 7776 Omega. We'll get to that later. Following these events, the site director established the current containment procedures. Materials required to finish the construction of the site were delivered to a remote delivery point, and additional resources were sourced from other organizations in an effort to disguise the site's imminent secession from the Foundation. Upon completion of Site 93, he sent the following message to the O5 Council. 4 months ago, 783 souls were sent to contain SCP-7776 in the frigid mountains, uprooting their lives and settling an area unknown to the modern world. They left behind families and friends, knowing that by rounding up these dangerous anomalies, they would be keeping the world safe. They were wrong, as was I, and that has led to the deaths of 692 of these brave souls. For the insane ramblings of the people we believed to be so dangerous were not so crazed, and even less dangerous. In fact, they have been doing our job for us for hundreds of years. They tried to warn us of an anomaly we didn't believe in, even as we interrogated them under the misguided belief that they were under the effect of an info-hazardous mindset. All the while, they tried to explain to us the danger that we and the world were in. I am writing to you now to warn you that this threat is very real. SCP-7776 is not an idea guiding individuals towards thaumaturgy and anomalous rituals. Rather, it is the reason these rituals must be performed, and it is the reason that you must not know any more than is absolutely necessary. What we guard at this site has the potential to harm anyone who comes into contact with it, but with a Foundation presence, it has the potential to harm billions through us, including the entire SCP Foundation. That is the reason that as of now, there is no longer an us. Effective immediately, you are to cease monitoring of this site. We have already scrubbed your servers of records relating to SCP-7776 that would be harmful to the Foundation and to you on the Council personally, and have implemented our own remote subnet on site. You may contact us at your leisure through this secure line, but be aware that in order to properly contain SCP-7776, we will not be at liberty to disclose any information beyond what you already know. This is for the safety and integrity of the SCP Foundation and the O5 Council, and we will not allow you to become compromised. While we mean no harm to any of our sister sites or any Foundation personnel, be warned that we have no choice but to enforce this parting with lethal force. A 20-kilometer exclusion zone around Site-93 is now in effect, and anyone seen entering this zone will be terminated. This is for the good of all. I do not doubt that you will attempt to reconnect with us, and we have taken measures to prevent this. You will not see the inside of this site, and you will not be compromised by SCP-7776. I am sorry that it needed to end this way. Goodbye. Site Director Svarog Pilecki, Site-93. Current understanding leads the Foundation to believe that the village was founded sometime before the year 549 AD, with an especially old structure in the southern edge of the village bearing Roman iconography warning of plague within the town. In 1379, the Pope and King Louis I of Hungary ordered the village purged of its population for as of yet unclear reasons. Despite its isolation, the village has historically been self-sufficient, although the primary mundane issue it suffers is inbreeding as a result of its natural isolation, with new arrivals often being lost hikers, plane crash survivors, or other lost individuals. As a result of this, the town's culture has a cosmopolitan nature, incorporating elements of new arrivals' cultures. On 2 occasions, individuals have discovered forgotten records indicating the well's existence and become afflicted with its mental effects, coming to the village through great personal expense. Among residents, the well is reviled and described as the door to the Dreaded One, a description of the malicious force as an apocalyptic figure. As such, the performing of rituals is seen as a shared responsibility among all residents of the village. Residents are tasked with chores and work 6 days a week, and maintain close multi-generational bonds, as well as a culture of mutual aid to ensure every member is supported. The town's religion is nominally Catholic, though with a blend of Eastern Orthodox and regional Christian traditions as well. Of note are 12 suits of armor displayed within the central church, each bearing the coat of arms of the Confraternity of St. George's Knights. Residents of the town attribute these as belonging to a group of saviors from the Middle Ages. Many homes within the village have a space dedicated to altars believed to be a corruption of Catholic shrines, with residents describing them as aiding in the containment of the well, although it's unknown if this claim is accurate. Many residents display physiological and psychological abnormalities, believed to be not only from long-term effects of inbreeding and exposure to the well, but also the cultural and mental coping mechanisms required to inhabit such a remote, stressful environment. Long-term residents have displayed higher than usual pain tolerance, stress thresholds, and individualism than seen outside of the village, in addition to the occasional manifestation of low-level reality warping abilities, usually minor telekinesis. Individuals born in the town have a higher rate of congenital conditions, such as heterochromia, albinism, arachnodactyly, and acromegaly. Following Event 7776 Omega and the completion of Site-93, Foundation personnel have largely been accepted by the inhabitants, with Foundation technology and infrastructure having greatly benefited the population. It's hoped that a combination of the Foundation's expertise in containment and the local population's long-standing traditions and knowledge surrounding the well may aid in the Anomaly's long-term containment and harm reduction in regards to its harmful effects on the afflicted. We're next given an interview between a Foundation researcher and a Mr. Saberi, a local of the village, who says that he wasn't born here, but was just a tourist that wanted to see wild animals. He trekked up here with his camera and tent, and had been out here for weeks photographing a pack of wolves. Before he knew it, though, there were no animals anywhere. No tracks, no sound, no smell. It was like a world where only plants existed. He knows now that it was because they were smarter than him, as they were afraid of the well and he hadn't a clue. He then noticed a man pointing a gun at him and screaming something, but he knew there was no cover behind him, so he decided to charge through him. The man chased after him, trying to save his life and stop him from seeing the well, but Saberi just kept running. It turned out that the man didn't even have any bullets, but Saberi's life was already over. He had seen the well over a hill, and it felt like he'd been kicked by a mule. When he entered the village, the people there seemed sad for him, and he was put into a room with everyone speaking to him until they found someone who spoke Iranian. They explained to him where he was, that he couldn't leave, and what would happen. Saberi panicked and tried to run, but they grabbed him and tied him down. He was stuck there until he had his first vision, and then he understood that there was no leaving. It was his job now to make sure that the dreaded one never comes out of that well. The doctor asks how long that process took, and Saberi says that it took less than 2 weeks, and what helped was the kindness that he was shown. His wailing and crying were not scorned, but met with sympathy. The doctor moves on to asking about the culture here, and Saberi explains that everything here is centered around the well. It's their duty to keep the dreaded one trapped down there, and they do everything they can in service of that duty. In fact, many here think that the Foundation doesn't take that duty seriously enough. They think that the Foundation waits too long between rituals, as before they came, it was never longer than 3 days between them. The doctor asks about the psychological toll of such frequent rituals, but Saberi just shrugs and says that you get used to it. He goes on to say that they look after each other here, and he met his wife here because they are open and tender. Their hearts must be open to joy and truth, rather than sealed against the good and the bad. A statement that I'm sure the Foundation loves to hear. The doctor asks if that's why religion is so important to them, and Saberi says that it is, because they take their comfort where they can get it. Those of them who were born here even say that the church was built by heroes from a faraway land, and it gives them hope, especially since it's true. He gives the doctor a box, which he says contains letters written by the heroes, and explains all about the church and the walls. The doctor takes them, and then asks about how the people here receive the rituals, as they haven't been able to figure that out yet. If the dreaded one is so powerful and dreadful, it seems odd that they would simply be presented the opportunity to stop it daily. Saberi says that that's the age-old question, and that some of the old-timers, when he first arrived here, used to talk about some legendary figure that fought the dreaded one, forced it into the well, and cursed it to be bound by the rituals. Saberi doesn't believe it, along with most of the people here, and the prevailing theory is that the rituals are a defense mechanism of the universe, or ordained by God. That doesn't really feel right to him either, though, and he thinks that it's all just random chance. No one ever asked why vampires need permission to enter a building, they just need it, which is lucky. It's the same thing here. They got lucky that the thing in the well needs them to fail if it wants to get out. That's all. The doctor remarks that that's certainly an interesting theory, and it may well be the case, but they prefer to know things for certain. An examination of the box and its contents provided by Saberi proved to be enlightening as to elements of the village's history regarding its absence from maps and general knowledge. In addition to medieval-era holy artifacts, the box contained copies of letters sent from a knight of the Confraternity of St. George's Knights addressed to a superior at the Vatican in the late 14th century. To further pad out this video, let's read these letters verbatim. Your Eminence, Cardinal Tebalci. Despite this most terrible winter, we have at last found this cursed hamlet, and indeed the king was most wise to beseech his holiness for aid. Not yet 2 days have passed, and already we have witnessed most terrible unholy rites performed. It is our belief that surely this is why the plague refused to touch this place. We have taken the settlement with little difficulty, for they possess no walls or militia, and have placed many of the pagans in irons for questioning. They of course deceive and blaspheme with their every breath. They claim to be godly people, yet only 4 are able to recite a simple Hail Mary. I regret to inform you that despite our swift occupation of the hamlet, many pagans did escape into the forest. Brother Kabani is confident they will be carried off by wolves and cold, but there has been no sight nor sound of any game for days now. Rest assured, our sorties will hunt them down and bring them to holy justice. For now, we shall put any who refuse to take the cross to the sword. Yours in Christ, Dragomari Andrat, Knight Commander. Your Eminence, Cardinal Tebalchi. It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you that our hunt for the pagans has been plagued with failure and misfortune. While my men are great and formidable knights, these pagans hide and use foul sorcery to hinder us. These woods are thick, and the terrain too difficult for our horses. Even in the light of the sun, it can be dark as a moonless night in the deep woods, and they know this. At least we may thank the grace of God that no wolves or bears trouble us here. I believe they are afraid of what the heathens have done to this place, for the only beasts we see here are scabrous rats, and the birds whose passing overhead seems to my eyes twisted and ungodly. Even such pure creatures as they are not safe from this evil. What's more is that the pagans steal into the hamlet past our watch to put spells and curses on us in the night. With each passing day, their toll weighs ever heavier on our hearts. The foul well here is clearly a great and terrible source of their magic, and has become a most frightful thing to behold. Daily we are plagued with terrible visions of this diabolic anomaly, and our attempts to destroy it are met with no avail. Even black powder, battering ram, and catapult fail to leave so much as a scratch. I fear that these pagans may take many months to root out, and as their spells continue to take their toll, it will only become all the more tiresome. Already we have lost 7 brothers to these foul magics, but we have driven off each attempt by the pagans to reach their well. Brothers Fiore, Lancia, Caracciolo, and Palud simply sank into the ground itself, as if it were not there. Those we have captive claim to detest the well as much as we, but offer only taunts in reply to questioning, claiming that we must engage in their sorcery to save ourselves. If I might speak frankly, Your Eminence, this business troubles me to my very soul. While I must present as bold and unbothered by the events around me for the sake of the men, I have never before seen a diabolic anomaly such as this. The visions with which it plagues us are so vile, but also of a nature that could not be known to any but oneself and the Lord. On the Sabbath I was plagued with a vision wherein I took my blade and cleaved Brother Ferruccio open, only to seal Brother Enzo within him with needles and thread. How can this be? Long have I feared such a fate, as my father warned would befall me should I stray from my tasks when I was but a boy, but not to a single soul have I confessed this. No diabolic anomaly I have faced has known of this weakness before, so why does this? I shall report on progress when it comes, though I expect it shall be slow. God be with us. Yours in Christ, Dragomari Andrat, Knight Commander. Your Eminence, Cardinal Tebalchi. We have been fools. Even as the heavens rain blood upon us, and the very earth has swallowed knight and pagan with no discernation, We have remained steadfast in our mission. All but myself and 18 others have survived this place. We are cut off now. A horde of vermin encircles the hamlet and mercilessly consume any who stray too close. Even plate stands no chance, as Brother Nicholas so awfully demonstrated. The earth at times births blasphemous deformities of mud and timbers that stalk the night, impaling those unfortunate to be in their paths upon themselves like macabre pennons. We dare not trust our own eyes, for we are plagued with fleeting visions of demons moving within the walls themselves. How we share these delusions I cannot say, but to believe them to be true seems almost worse than to not trust one's own eyes. The very earth beneath our feet is more akin to a battlefield than mud and sod, having turned to fetid meat that mingles with the mud underfoot. I have taken those of us left to the center of the village around the Diaboli Anomaly and have erected defenses. Among us are the remaining pagans who, while lacking in skill at arms, possess great conviction and fortitude. I am ashamed to say that I have been uncharitable in my assessment of these people. Godless though they have proven to be willing converts. Indeed, many take strength from the Lord's grace and have joined us at prayer. Conversing with them openly has taught me that these people were pagans not by choice, but happenstance. They have fallen prey to a terrible demon that makes his home within the well here, and have taken it upon themselves to keep it sealed within, lest it emerge and spread its corruption elsewhere. The visions that have hounded us are in fact the key to salvation, for they are the weapon used to combat this demon. The visions appear nightly now, more terrible with each passing day. The earth heaves like the belly of a pregnant mother, and it has been 4 days since we last glimpsed the sun. This can only mean the demon draws ever nearer, and it is clear what we must do. We have attempted to vanquish this evil by all of our means, exhausting our holy water and spirits to no avail. All that is left is to heed the visions and pray that it is God's will, for I know not what else we can do. I draw strength from the knowledge that only the Lord sees men's hearts, and perhaps that means our visions have been His will. Lord, help us. Yours in Christ, Dragomari Andrade, Knight Commander. Your Eminence, Cardinal Tebalchi. It is done. 3 nights ago, we performed a most horrible rite to drive the demon back into its lair, but now only 12 of us remain. We have paid a terrible price, but order has been restored. Gone are the rats and blood, and I can think clearly once more. But our rite was not enough. Still, we are granted vision from the Lord. It is clear we must remain here to guard this place. No weapon has proven capable of destroying the well, and I fear that any who gaze upon it shall be ensnared just as we have. I am sorry to say we have failed in our mission. All that is left now is to ensure that this cursed place cannot take more souls. It is my proposal that this village is to be forgotten. Every map, every text, every scrap of knowledge is to be erased from the world so that none may come and be ensnared by this burden. We survivors shall fortify the town for this very purpose, and shall require resupply to do so. Any who stray too close must be turned away by force, so the demon's influence may stretch no further than it already has. Once our work is done and the fortifications built, we shall remain and serve out our days in opposition to this foul well. While we may have failed to destroy it thus far, I am confident that in time the strength shall be granted us to shatter our adversary, for surely with its destruction, so too shall come that of the demon. I pray that someday we may succeed. I am also pleased to bring tidings of the villagers here. All have accepted the Lord into their hearts, and they yearn with all their hearts for a house of God to be built in this place. Surely, this is a sign that what I propose is just. Yours in Christ, Dragomari Andrat, Knight Commander. It certainly seems like the king and pope believed him, as they did wipe the place out of all recorded history. Next, we're given two separate logs, one recording various artifacts connected to or affected by the well, and another detailing various events and phenomena that have occurred over the years. Various walkways and thoroughfares throughout the village have been recorded occasionally shifting, often redirecting an individual's path towards the well. A leather-bound book was recovered detailing previously enacted rituals dating back to 1982, with no ritual ever seen to be repeated. In one dilapidated building used as a supply depot, a number of items were found carried by missing persons, with several of them consistent with field gear utilized by various groups of interest in the mid-1960s. A corroded 15th century helmet was recovered from the well, fused with remnants of a human skull, only the right side of which remains on the inside of the helmet. A standard 20-kilogram Olympic barbell in the Site-93 gymnasium was found to be bent into a spiral shape before being straightened out and returned. A severed arm of an adult male was also found in the well, identified as belonging to an agent who was lost in a ritual the previous year. A statuette was recovered depicting a six-armed skeletal humanoid crucified upon a spiral glyph and constructed from an unknown black stone material. Persons within a 10-meter radius of the item report feelings of unease and being watched. A heavily altered skeletal structure of a horse was found in the well, with reassembly showing it to possess numerous humanoid arms emerging from its neck, carnivorous dentition, and a disproportionately long tail. Found within the church was an unusually large, single-handed sword inlaid with bronze, showing none of the deterioration present in blades of similar age. Oral tradition asserts that this blade was used by an unnamed heroic figure to seal the entity within the well, with research pending. A tattoo of an agent's daughter on their shoulder has been replaced over a period of years with a spiral glyph, detailed to appear as being made with numerous small cuts. Over the years, various contents of meals at Site-93 have been converted into the same corrosive material found in the well, and on one occasion, some soup that was already consumed was converted, leading to the affected party requiring life-saving surgery. Flocking birds passing over the well's area of effect are frequently observed forming unusual spiral-shaped aerial formations, and no avian life has been observed to willingly land within the area. A junior researcher reported experiencing a nightmare where she was pulled into the well by a monster with numerous hands, before physically changing into a similar form themselves. In 2011, numerous heavily mutated rats emerged from the well and experienced what appeared to be severe seizures before dying. In addition to numerous tumors, the rats were observed to have multiple extraneous limbs and partially formed additional heads. The site director in 2022 reported experiencing a nightmare in which he was attempting to rescue the former director from a black whirlpool, but was unable to stop her from being dismembered and submerged. In 2007, following a series of failed rituals, Site-93 experienced a spatial shift, causing various areas of the site to briefly simultaneously exist in the same space. During this period, an agent and a doctor were non-fatally fused together, with research into methods to safely separate the two being ongoing. In 2022, an agent reported that a fellow agent no longer recalled having met or known him, despite the two working together for over 8 years. The agent didn't experience memory loss in regards to any other person. In 2018, a group of 8 on-site personnel experienced a collective psychotic break following prolonged failure to enact ritual behavior, and proceeded to use sewing supplies to conjoin one another within an on-site sub-basement. All of them were successfully separated and treated, and all returned to lucidity following the performance of a ritual. In 2010, an agent reported that the water in his canteen had been converted to blood, and testing showed that the blood was his own. There have been numerous reports of a skeletal humanoid entity within Site-93 after a period of 10 to 15 days of no ritual activity. Everyone experiencing these hallucinations have reported feelings of being watched for extended periods of time afterwards. Following a ritual in 2005 requiring a villager to physically enter the well, she has now survived for years despite the loss of over 89% of her body. While on-site ethics committee personnel advocated for euthanasia, the woman and various longtime residents rejected the proposal. In 2013, a doctor reported having a nightmare where a humanoid entity emerged from the well, resulting in an unspecified K-class scenario. The doctor refused the opportunity to use sleep aids following the event in an effort to learn more about the well. We're then given some information about Event 7776 Omega, which occurred shortly after the Foundation first came on the scene and tried to shut everything down. Originally, Site-93 was primarily situated outside of the village's walls as a small subterranean facility. The working theory was that a mimetic cognitohazard affected the local populace, inflicting mass hysteria. It was also believed that ritual behavior was the trigger for the disruptions to baseline reality. For a period of time, the villagers were held in containment, and procedures were designed to suppress ritual effects. The primary goal was to suppress and then cure the thought-to-be delusional effects evident in their behavior. This led to a 37-day period of time where no rituals were performed, which saw an increasing instability in local reality centered on the well, as well as increased distress in the villagers. This was believed to be a symptom of the villagers' distress over being unable to perform ritual behavior, and their given explanation of the true nature of the well continued to be rejected by on-site personnel. As the effects became more extreme, the site suffered increasingly heavy losses, and within 15 days, all personnel on site became affected by the cognitohazardous effect. The director at the time shifted priorities from containment of personnel and cognitohazardous behavior towards putting significant Foundation resources into ritual activity. Due to the extensive resources available to Level 4 personnel, the rituals prescribed by the Visions were extensive and massively draining, demanding 6 to 7 figure financial commitments, political demands, and massive personnel requirements. Consequently, Site Director Pilecki was forced to request additional staff from the nearest site to compensate for the increasing number of casualties caused by the well's disruption of baseline reality and the present staff. Contact with Site-93 was lost shortly thereafter. Days after Pilecki's request, a 4-man survey team was dispatched from Site-120 to determine the severity of the situation and ascertain the resources and manpower required to resume normal operations in the area. Due to severe snowstorms, air travel was deemed impossible, and a lack of roads or trails combined with the mountainous terrain of the area necessitated the use of all-terrain vehicles for the final approach of the site. It was then discovered that the well's effect on local reality had reached catastrophic levels. We're provided a body camera log from the survey team, starting at 6:43 p.m. as the team travels through the thick forest on ATVs. They reach a break in the tree line and see a forested valley in front of them, with both Site-93 and the village located 30 kilometers away. The hill beneath the village is observed to have raised significantly and visibly pulsates in a slow rhythm. Many details are obscured by a heavy downpour of red liquid over the area, and several stationary structures superficially resembling tree roots can be seen descending from the cloud cover over both the village and Site-93. Numerous spatial reality shifts can be seen affecting the village, causing various structures to briefly occupy the same space simultaneously before returning to their previous locations, with materials partially fusing together as a result. The team remains silent for an extended period of time as they observe. Their initial approach was hampered by the well's effects, with the rainfall composed of blood turning the ground into a bog, forcing the abandonment of their vehicles. Geometric anomalies were also reported, though avoided, resulting in the team circling the site several times before achieving entry. They found the site to be running on emergency generators and unmanned, with numerous tracks shown emerging from the site towards the village, but it was determined that the site be investigated prior to the village. Their investigation revealed that the containment wing had suffered numerous breaches, though the majority of its occupants remained in their cells. Inhabitants of the containment wing were segregated into different wards, composed entirely of the village's inhabitants or of affected Foundation personnel. A large portion of those secured within their cells had entered into psychotic or catatonic states due to the well's effects. Some had become partially fused with the walls and ceilings, with most apparently being victims of spatial positioning shifts, and 2 others seeming to melt. Civilians remained largely catatonic or non-hostile, but a small number of affected personnel proved aggressive. While the team was largely able to avoid confrontation, they were forced to engage a pair of conjoined Foundation staff members, resulting in the deaths of both members and an agent. Of those personnel contained within the site, 17 individuals proved to be lucid, explaining that the worsening of the well's effects had disrupted the site's communications, and that the Foundation's current understanding of the anomaly was entirely incorrect. When questioned about the status of the remaining Foundation staff, a doctor explained that the worsening effects of the anomaly had caused them to experience windows of insanity or complete catatonia, and that they had at last been observed heading towards the well. Following a debriefing on the true nature of the well and the necessity of performing rituals to properly contain it, it was determined that a ritual was to be conducted over the well in order to avert a potential K-class scenario. The survey team aided the survivors in restraining a number of individuals from various containment cells and in gathering supplies needed to perform the rituals and reach the well safely. Once properly outfitted, the group proceeded to exit the site and approach the village by standard transport. As they approached the village, large numbers of rats were encountered swarming the area. This, combined with the steep incline of the terrain, deep mud, and poor visibility as a result of blood coating the vehicle's windscreen, caused progress to slow significantly. Approximately 200 meters from the southern gate of the village, both vehicles became stranded as rats entered the exhaust and engine bays and caused obstructions to engine components. Flame suppression units were used to clear a path for the group to approach the village, which was slow as flame units were required to continuously fend off attack from rats, which displayed extreme aggression and no regard for their own safety. Despite the onslaught, particularly during passage through the gatehouse, the group successfully entered the village, suffering only superficial injuries. Within the village, the presence of rats was much reduced, but local reality appeared more heavily affected by the well, with multiple structures seen intersecting and fusing together at random, and geometric anomalies or gravity anomalies present. Numerous Foundation personnel were sighted within the village, slowly moving throughout the area in a counterclockwise route, in hysterical states and frequently clawing at their own and each other's faces. Attempts to communicate with these individuals were unsuccessful, with the affected persons ignoring outside stimuli and incessantly shouting incomprehensibly. Evidence of incomplete corpses previously consumed by rats were present close to the point of entry. Visibility is poor due to the downpour of blood from the clouds above, though intermittently improved by bursts of flame being used to disperse groups of rats. Large, root-like structures can be seen hanging from the cloud cover overhead, appearing to be composed of fungal-coated porous stone. Sections of these structures can be seen breaking away and falling to the ground throughout the recording. As the group moves through the village, a significant tremor rocks the area, forcing them to stop. 2 trees and 7 Foundation personnel can be seen to visibly flicker, appearing to repeatedly share the same space in the center of the courtyard before returning to their original positions. The earth tremor subsides and the spatial event eases, resulting in both trees and 6 of the individuals caught in the event becoming fused together, with undifferentiated human bodies having been stretched and torn by the spatial shift to match the form of the trees. While most of these individuals were observed to have died immediately, one individual can be seen to have only partially fused to the tree, remaining semi-mobile, suspended from the trunk. The camera looks away, and there is the sound of a firearm discharging 4 times rapidly. Following the central path of the village, the team continued towards the well, fending off groups of rats and hostile humans devoid of reason, with one individual in particular having to be terminated with small arms fire while attempting to assault the team with a bear trap. As the group approached the well in the center of the village, progress once more slowed due to difficult terrain. Spatial shifts had rendered multiple routes of access impassable due to destructive spaces, vacuum, or gravity anomalies, and flooding from the well introduced caustic mud to the route. The remaining survey team members were noted to have entered into a state of panic upon visual confirmation of the well, halting progress as established Site-93 personnel calmed them down. A ground tremor then shook the area, driving the team to take shelter against a structure's stone walls. The well proceeded to release copious amounts of caustic fluid, with a thick and extremely dark appearance, along with the deceased and nude bodies of 3 agents that had previously passed away on site and had been cremated. Each cadaver was observed to have broken jaws and damaged limb joints and eyes. Prior to the earth tremor subsiding, a large portion of fungal-coated porous stone detached from one of the aerial structures above the area and landed within the town square, adjacent to the well. Later inspection of the stone showed it to be composed of a similar material to the well itself, previously having been of locally common granite. The force of this impact caused the bodies emerging from the well to be swept into a mass of mud and debris against the wall opposite the team. One of the team rushes forward and discharges her flame suppression unit in the direction of the mudslide, and another member joins her as a mass of mud, timber debris, and corpses approaches, gradually taking on a vaguely infantile humanoid form, approximately 4 meters tall. A Foundation doctor can be heard directing the rest of the group into the civilian building, shortly followed by muffled screams from within. The mud entity approaches the group, swinging an appendage and visibly knocking one of the agent's weapons from his hands, impaling itself on a length of iron. The agent can be seen retreating to the building, with the entity in pursuit, and the bodies of 2 of the deceased agents can be clearly seen in the center mass of the entity. Their eyes are absent and their mouths appear locked open, with green vapor and fluid flowing freely from the orifices and other wounds. The camera rapidly turns as the agent enters the building, the other agent quickly behind him as they close and bolt the door. Inside, another agent directs small arms fire towards a large, flailing mass of rats in the corner of the room, causing many of them to scatter. The partially consumed form of the assistant director can be briefly seen beneath the rats, with much of the flesh of his arms, back, and thigh visibly having been consumed. After treating minor injuries suffered during the quake, the group proceeded to circle behind several buildings, seeking a route to safely traverse to approach the well. Mud entities appeared at this point to pursue the group, hampering their progress. It was determined that the best course of action would be to approach the well from the north and to set more severely injured parties to a shed-type structure atop a hill closer to the anomaly, where preparations would be made before performing the prescribed ritual. This route through the back alleys proved both expedient and dangerous, allowing for multiple hiding spots for remaining groups of frenzied rats and human hostiles. Flame suppression units were used extensively to clear pockets of rats, and small arms fire was used to dissuade 4 to 5 hostile Foundation staff from pursuit. From the north wall of the village, the group proceeded to approach the well through the town square. At this point, flame suppression units depleted, although the number of present rats were dwindling. Due to the burden of equipment required for the ritual, aiding injured or catatonic personnel, and difficulties with terrain, 26 meters of travel took 40 minutes. While the bulk of the group was reaching the top of the hill, the area was shaken by another earth tremor coinciding with a spatial shift. Relative gravity along the slope of the hill began to steepen, causing mud and debris to flow rapidly, making ascent actively hostile. It's believed that an underground spatial shift created a void behind the group, which opened a sinkhole at the base of the hill. Mud, blood, and debris were observed to circle the sinkhole as they were pulled in, forming a whirlpool behind the group as they attempted to ascend. The team can be seen hauling a restrained Foundation member up the hill towards the remainder of the group, with the view distorted by blood raining on the camera lens. One of the survey team members gets caught by a mass of wreckage which sweeps him into the mudslide. He can be heard screaming and swearing as he's dragged down, trying repeatedly to cling to an anchor point. As he approaches the sinkhole, he can be heard praying in panic, and his camera feed goes dark as he's pulled underneath the mud inside of the sinkhole. A static camera located on the perimeter of Site-93 shows a humanoid figure emerging from the cloud cover at speed, visibly flailing. As it falls, its legs collide with one of the aerial structures, and as it continues to fall, it becomes clear that it's the same agent that just got pulled under the sinkhole. He can be seen screaming as he falls for 27 seconds before impacting the stone flooring in front of the camera, dying on impact. The body can be seen to have suffered multiple burns prior to landing and was noticeably disfigured. Once safe, the group proceeded to prepare ritual components within a civilian structure adjacent to the well. A number of the restrained Foundation personnel were anointed with intricate patterns drawn in blood taken from the assistant director, before having something expunged done to them. Other components were arranged into a Class H probability device by Site-93 personnel, and 2 of the survey team members moved to confiscate the device, but were stopped by lucid Site-93 staff. The survey team members were then crucified upon an improvised breaking wheel within the shed structure. Camera footage taken shows the blood rain continuing to fall as the group travels towards the well, with large quantities of green-tinted black sludge gushing from the well, covering the entire area. A large, vaguely humanoid form possessing numerous arms can be seen attempting to emerge from the well, but it seems unable to breach the surface of the sludge. Ritualistic chanting can be faintly heard from off-camera, but is largely drowned out by the screams of the 2 survey team members. The lucid staff can be seen dragging restrained personnel towards the well, having been stripped of their clothing and appearing to have had their mouths crudely surgically altered. Those orchestrating the ritual are then seen to place each prisoner against the base of the well, with their arms draping over one another in a complex embrace involving twisting and the dislocation of shoulders. The rainfall is no longer consisting of blood, but instead a thin black liquid. The well then floods, as the sludge spills forth over the captives, visibly burning and melting their skin as it flows over them. The skin and flesh of the captives is seen to mix with the corrosive sludge, taking on a consistency similar to melted wax, spreading over the area. The figure within the well thrashes and flails all the more intensely, but remains unable to breach the surface. The video goes to static, before resuming to show the well entirely coated in a web of organic material, presumably the melted remains of the captives. Green fluid can be seen flowing freely along this material in small channels, giving off a sickly vapor. Masses of squirming black tendrils or worms can be seen coating the ground, but avoiding the web of organic material descending from the well. The village buildings surrounding the well now appear to be constructed of the same black stone as the well itself, with their windows lit from within with flickering light. Black fluid, bright red blood, mud, and clearish oil-like fluids are seen rising into the air, resembling reversed rainfall. The ritual chanting is now the only audible sound in the recording, and the scene is periodically illuminated by flashes of brown lightning, revealing a colossal, indistinct, shadowy, vaguely serpentine figure moving within the clouds, with multiple arms descending towards the well. A loud scream can then be heard, and the ritual chanting falters as the entire frame shakes, revealing that the two survey team members' muffled screams can still be heard, growing increasingly mixed and distorted. The chanting then continues, and the group can be seen rising into the air in a circle surrounding the well, each person being visibly altered and mutilated. Components of the melted captives are seen connected to the survivors among their spatially warped and flayed skin stretching out behind them. The two survey team members can then be heard emitting a grunting, gasping sound as a large, jagged shard of black stone is violently thrust from below the camera frame, with a length of organic tissue connected to its end leading into the well. The organic tendril pulls taut, and the camera begins to approach the well, before being cut off by static. When it resumes, the footage implies that the camera is rolling, no longer being worn. Footage shows the town square displaying significant damage, and one building partially collapses on screen before the camera rolls against the dead body of an unidentified Foundation researcher. Local reality appears to have returned to baseline levels, and there is no sign of the survey team or the Site-93 survivors. Within 2 hours of loss of contact, an additional set of survey teams along with an armed escort were sent to investigate the initial teams. These later teams discovered the village to be in significantly worse condition than the initial team had encountered. Unknown processes led to the complete desertion of the village, with various structures in different states of disrepair. The remains of approximately 150 deceased Foundation personnel were found across the town, with more complete remains damaged by corrosive liquids, self-inflicted injuries to the head, or bearing evidence of consumption by rats. Subsequent autopsies discovered geometric brain anomalies and gibberish lettering recently etched into teeth and bones via unknown means. 4 bodies were found with the gastrointestinal tract and aorta packed with dry rock, matching local sources, and 6 discovered with injuries consistent with deep-sea decompression. None of these 10 bodies had any recognizable patterns that would lead to an explanation of why they suffered similar anomalies. Of those found within the village, only Site Director Pilecki was found alive within a cafeteria freezer unit half submerged into the earth. Though suffering severe self-inflicted facial wounds and bruising trauma, he was able to resume duties, but possesses no memory of the incident. Examination of deceased rats in the village prior to disposal showed them to be malformed, with scabrous fur, abnormal growths on their skin, and copious amounts of both human and rat flesh in their digestive tracts. Judging from rodent populations and recordings of this event and eyewitness reports, a single-digit percentage of rodent corpses were recovered, in comparison to what should be expected. Site-93 itself was found to have been comparatively unaffected, with site staff and village inhabitants sealed within bunkers and containment cells, showing a 72% survival rate. Repair and expansion of the site commenced rapidly, and began its journey towards a more independent role in the Foundation. So, that got pretty awful there towards the end, but it seems like they've got a handle on it for now. Early in the article, we're led to believe that there is something cognito-hazardous going on, where people are just convinced that there's something bad in the well and enact crazy rituals to stop it. But the big event shows that there is definitely something very anomalous coming from the well. We're left with some unanswered questions about what exactly is in the well and what is causing the visions and rituals to work to keep it at bay, but that's alright. The Foundation swooped in and thought they could just button this all up like they usually do, in a very similar fashion to the Knights in the 14th century, but they also realized how dangerous this thing can be and isolated themselves. The more people that are aware of the thing means that the more involved and expansive the rituals become, which begs the question of what would happen if the Foundation just kept a very small team there, or even a single individual. It's certainly an article that carries that whole "we die in the dark so that you may live in the light" thing that the Foundation has going on. I'm sure the Foundation isn't entirely happy about having a whole site and anomaly out there that they can't check on at all, but the current situation sounds a lot better than the alternative. If 200 people are willing to sacrifice themselves through bizarre rituals in order to protect the world, that's a sacrifice the Foundation is willing to make.